Thank you, everyone. It is with immense happiness and joy I would like to let you know that this is the 25th AuroYouth online interactive session in the series for youth, From Twilight to Sunlit Path. As the world was witnessing the direct and indirect effects of Corona, AuroYouth was one of the first organizations to launch a series highlighting various aspects of walking the sunlit path, the path of joy, peace, tranquility, and inner harmony amidst everything that was going on externally. With this intention, we started these online sessions from June onwards to provide the youth with inner strength and spiritual outlook that will help them in navigating through life. With folded hands, gratitude to Sri Aurobindo and the Mother for guiding us into making this happen. We covered a plethora of diverse spectrum of topics pertinent to the youth, ranging from handling relationships to heartbeat of creativity, from falling in love to rising in love, to the importance of money and how we can continue to persevere in these times. And to make this happen, we had speakers from 12 plus cities come together and share their knowledge with us. It is indeed a true treasure in itself. And finally, gratitude to all the participants who have been with us in this exploration and deep dive into the realms of our inner selves. With this, I welcome you all on our Silver Jubilee panel discussion on Indic feminism, and indeed beyond it as well. As part of this talk, we will be touching upon how Mother and Sri Aurobindo have brought in a kind of revolution in looking at equality of men and women. Whether it truly is equality and how is it moving towards neutrality. And these are words that go back to 1940 or so. I would like to share a very small example of the kind of environment that Mother had created back in 1940s, where she encouraged girls and women in school and college to dress up in shorts, as it was difficult to do exercises and practice sports in a kurta pajama. Now, this is a very small thing, but this happened in a very traditional South Indian town that really left people aghast. However, for Mother and Sri Aurobindo, it was the soul and the evolution of soul rather than anything else. And that is something that took utmost importance. I would like to read a quote from Mother here. All the universe has been created to express the divine power, and human beings, men or women, have for special mission to become conscious of and to manifest that eternal divine essence. Such is their object and none other. To touch upon aspects like these, we have with us 4 eminent speakers who are loved by our audience, who have been our speakers, and I would love to quickly introduce all of them to you. Firstly, I would like to welcome Anaita Sanjanadi. She qualified herself as a biomedical engineer from Thadomal Shahani Engineering College in 1993. However, shortly after her graduation, she discovered 2 callings in her life, yoga and teaching. Neither would find fulfillment in the corporate world, and therefore she chose to teach math and biology at the J.B. Petite High School for Girls, Mumbai, and simultaneously became a student of yoga, first at Kaivalya Dham and then with Jehangir Palkhiwala, who is her current yoga teacher. She has been teaching yoga as an ICSE subject for the past 20 years and also at the Bombay International School, Mumbai, since 2005, and is thrilled with the response of the youth to the subject. In the year 2014, the University of Chicago awarded her the Outstanding Educator Award for her work with teenagers. She has also been, she explores her spiritual master, Sri Aurobindo's epic work, Savitri, with the youth at Sri Aurobindo Center on a weekly basis and holds monthly talks titled Living Inside Out as well. Currently, she is the youth coordinator of the Mumbai region for Sri Aurobindo Society. We welcome you, Di. Next, we have with us Divyanshi Chugh. Divyanshi was studying social policy at the University of Oxford when she decided to come to Pondicherry. Through an year of intense inner churning at Oxford, she decided to forego the prospect of pursuing further studies from Cambridge and instead came to India to dive into Indian spiritual wisdom. She studied integral yoga psychology from the works of the Mother and Sri Aurobindo from Indian Psychology Institute. The course in Pondicherry was a deeply transformative journey for her. However, after the course, she felt like she was sitting on a gold mine, but did not know how to apply it in the world. In 2016, searching for how one can apply integral knowledge in life in a way that transforms oneself as well as the collective, she came to Auroville. Today, she is seeking to apply her learnings in Auroville through building and facilitating higher educational learning programs and projects founded in integral yoga psychology. And I am one of the persons who has actually been her student. So a very warm welcome, Divyanshi. Next, we have with us Ojasi Di. Ojasi ji has multifarious experience from diverse fields of life. She is a software engineer, fluent in Sanskrit, and an accomplished Kathak performer, choreographer, teacher, researcher, and writer recognized nationally and internationally. Drawn to Sri Aurobindo and the Mother since childhood, she took to spiritual calling through Bhagavad Gita, memorized 700 Sanskrit verses of the Gita, and now conducts classes on Sri Aurobindo's The Essays on Gita. We are very glad to have you today. We also have with us Manoj Sharma ji, who is close to the hearts of several youth and integral yoga practitioners. He is also the chairman of Madhya Pradesh State Committee of Sri Aurobindo Society and a member of SAS Core Group, Pondicherry. He is an engineer by profession and is currently working for the MP government at Bhopal. He is a pioneer in the field of Nari Shakti and leads a very powerful initiative towards this cause through Sakar. He is also an eminent writer, motivator, and a resource person in Sri Aurobindo's philosophy. For today's moderation, we have with us Srinivas Mulugu, who is Vice Chairman of Sri Aurobindo Society for Telangana State. He is also the National Director for AuroYouth and also for Sri Aurobindo Foundation for Integral Management, SAFIP. He has been associated with the Mother and Sri Aurobindo since 1980s and has been full-time Sri Aurobindo Society since 2012. He is based out of Hyderabad. We welcome everyone and we welcome all the participants for our talk today. For the structure of today's talk, our speakers will share their thoughts on the Indic way of looking at feminism. What does it mean and how does it compare with the Western perspective of feminism? Is it really some kind of an activist movement? And further, we will be looking at the forward-looking view of feminism. What does it truly mean in the light of Mother and Sri Aurobindo? And what are some of the path-breaking revelations that they have made? After this, we will open the panel for our participants for question and answers. We request all the participants to share their questions over chat. And for those who are watching us on Facebook, you can share your questions as comments and we will take them up after the panelists have shared their thoughts. With this and without any further ado, I invite Divyanshi to begin with her thoughts.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Palak. So this is really a topic which I feel is very, very dear to my heart and probably dear to a lot of our hearts. Not a very conscious, but one of the reasons why I came to Sri Aurobindo was somewhere I was searching for, when I was exploring spirituality, somewhere I was searching for where is the woman in all of this? Where is the feminine in all of this? And through that yearning, through that seeking, is really what led me to Sri Aurobindo, who I today see as really the most radical feminist that has ever existed. And his thoughts on feminism, or Indic thought on feminism, is so rarely appreciated and known that I really feel, this is a knowledge that really needs to go out in the world. So I've been given the task of introducing the ideal of Indic feminism, which is a very tall task. But if I may, I will begin with just kind of highlighting 4 important points, which if you can really carry, I think that'll be enough justice for today's time that has been given to me. So the first is, in modern day feminism, we are basically exploring the territory between sex and gender. So between being a female and to being a woman in the society. But the Indic feminism really goes beyond the social and the biological to include the psychological and the spiritual. Actually, the most groundbreaking discovery of the Indian tradition has been the spiritual truth of Shakti. And that is really at the heart of Indic feminism. Woman as power, not just to empower the woman, but the very fundamental a sense of who the feminine is, who the feminine energy is, that itself as Shakti. And that's a very, very revolutionary kind of an idea to begin with. One is to kind of get in touch with that divine Shakti, but even just as an idea, it's such a groundbreaking idea, because that just completely shifts our paradigm and our perspective to this thing about trying to empower women, to really seeing the woman herself is the power, herself is the divine Shakti. So that's the first. And here I'd just like to underline one thing. Now as there are nuances that are coming in feminism, there is also a nuanced understanding which is emerging that it's not just about the biological woman and man, but also the psychological masculine and feminine qualities. And a lot of understandings there has been borrowed from the yin and yang, where the woman is looked at as the passive, as the night, the eternal night, the passive, and a complementary to the masculine. And it's almost becoming like a thing in vogue to say that all of us have masculine and feminine inside of us, which is certainly a much more nuanced and a deeper understanding than to completely box it on the basis of your biological characteristics. However, the Indic ideal of feminism goes even a step beyond and further to see that we have the masculine and the feminine characteristics. So it's not just the masculine and the feminine characteristics, but there is the true feminine, the true divine Shakti behind it. And interestingly, as most even our modern understandings of the feminine are, that's the passive, relationship oriented, love aspect is the woman. But really the Indian tradition even sees Kali, the force of strength, as the woman. She is literally Shakti. So it's really in a certain sense the opposite of how we see the woman as passive. to really putting her at the heart of all action and calling her as Shakti. Now, that by its very fundamental nature is something extremely, extremely transformative. Perhaps I'll be coming back to it when I compare it with the modern day feminism a little bit later. But that's really the first thing that I want you to really carry: the woman as power, the woman as Shakti. And that is what we're talking about. The second is the modern day feminism, to a huge extent, or to some extent, does question the current ideals of the society and what a human being is, but doesn't quite radically question. So when we are talking about feminism in the context of Indic feminism, we are not just talking about a new ideal of a woman or a new ideal of a relationship between a man and a woman, but we're talking in the context of a new ideal of a society. We're talking in the context of a new ideal of a human being. So, and the reason why it's important is, if we do not define a new ideal of a society and a human being, you would want the woman to equal the man in the current ideal. So if the current ideal of a man is the one who's earning a lot of money, who's earning a lot of fame, who's earning a lot of status, then that's exactly what the woman wants. So redefining the very aim of the society at large and what a perfect human being is the second major characteristic in the light of which we really see. So when we are really seeing a human being, we are talking about the emergence of a soul. When we are really seeing or envisaging a new society, we are really envisaging a new creation born out of a fundamentally new consciousness. It is within that context that we imagine who a woman is, what is the ideal relationship between a man and a woman, and even it is only in that context can we talk about equality, because then at least we're talking about equality for the right kind of things. It's not like, you are egoistic, I should be as egoistic as you. That's just stupidity. Rather, if we redefine our aim as, as somebody who is serving and not being served. Right now, our ideal is a human being, an egoistic human being who's being served. So the more I'm served, the more I have diverse cars, things, more successful I am. But if we redefine the entire thing as the more I'm able to give, the more I'm able to serve, very naturally the ideal and the importance of woman really emerges. Because throughout centuries, she's in many ways being the embodiment of love, being the embodiment of service, being the embodiment of self-giving. The third is, when we are looking at equality in this context of new feminism, if I may use that word, equality is important. Equality is certainly important. So we are not saying there should not be equality and la 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 la. Equality is important, but that's too low an aim. It's like, the other day I saw on Facebook, somebody wrote that tolerance is the highest aim of education. I'm like, duh, if that's it, like equality, that's it. No, the highest aim has to be something that's transformative, that's powerful, that's bringing a higher harmony. So Mother and Sri Aurobindo are talking about, a being which is sexless. So something that's really beyond, let's at least keep our ideal of feminism really, really high. So, we can chart out that territory accordingly. So that's the third point. The fourth is, when we are talking about feminism here, we are not just talking about individuals. We are also talking about the collective. The Mother Earth is the woman. The divine Shakti, the feminine energy that's working and creating in all of us collectively, that's the woman. So we're not just talking about a revolution or an evolution at an individual level. We're talking about an evolution at the level of the collective. So with these 4 points of woman as Shakti, redefining the goals of the society and human being, equality is only step 1. And the fourth is, we're not just talking about the individual, we're talking about the collective. That's how I introduce the ideal of Indic feminism and hand it over to Srinivas.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Divyanshi. A very passionate, broad-based covering of what feminism has been for us in India through the ages, and how consciousness has been the central principle around which all the ideals of Sanatan Dharma and the Indic civilization have evolved. Let us now take a few moments and discuss more along the lines of what are the contemporary aspects of how feminism is blossoming in India today. We have just seen Divyanshi talk about how the evolution has been of feminism in India over centuries. Let us now take a sprinkling of what this has translated to in the 21st century. I will request Anahita Sanjana to take this further.
Thank you, Srinivas. So, over the years, in novels, in common parlance, we often hear the woman being referred to as the weaker sex. And I often think, why are we called the weaker sex? Is it because maybe we have less muscle power, although nowadays we have many women also who are terrifically building their bodies. But it's not about that. The question is strength defined by muscle power, or is strength really a function of consciousness? And I'll share a lovely story from the mother's life. When she was 9 years old, there was a bully in her school who used to keep teasing the girls. And one day the mother, small little thing, went up to him and said, "Will you just stop it?" And he continued to tease her. And something descended into little Mira, that was her name. And she just picked up the bully and twirled him in the air and tossed him to the floor. And he was so flabbergasted that he never bullied anyone ever again. And mother later on says that she recognized this as a descent of the Mahakali force into her. The four aspects of the mother were constantly using her as their vehicle because they were her four aspects. And she describes this as the descent of Mahakali into her. So we've established that the real strength that counts in the existence and in life is strength of consciousness. And Mother's perspective of feminism is not really about equality, it's beyond equality between men and women. It's about understanding that there is one source, one consciousness, one God essence inhabiting the male and female forms. And if we really understand this, the need for feminism itself becomes redundant. It's like there's water in a cup and there's water in a glass. We don't need to prove that they are equal. We just have to recognize that they are the same. So that is Mother's ideal of feminism, but of course, in the current day and age, we are a far cry away from there. I'm reminded of a conversation I had with a very promising young student of mine, a girl close to 30s, and doing very well in the corporate, earning well, well educated, but so much pressure from her family to get married. And one day she just said, "I'm just going to marry the first person because I just want to keep my parents happy." And I said that, why is it that even in this day and age, it's not okay to have a girl who's 30 years old, unmarried at home? Why can't we take it as a wonderful opportunity to just enjoy our children for more time? And this takes me to the story of an uneducated lady who grew up in a poor village in Maharashtra, Sindhutai Sapkal, familiar name for all of us. And she recently won the Padma Shri Award also. There's a tremendous story behind Sindhutai. Sindhutai was married at the age of 9 to a man who was 30 years old. By the time she was 19, she had 3 sons and was pregnant with another child. At that time, her husband, instigated by someone, tried to kill her. And somehow Sindhutai escaped and went out of the house, but nobody accepted her, desolate, alone. She almost had a death wish. And that's the time she was sitting below a tree and she saw the branch of a tree dangling. And she saw that that branch was giving her shade, and a swordsman had axed it, so it was hanging by a very thin thread to the parent tree. And she said that that branch, so fragile, so wounded, it's still giving me shade. Surely this is a sign from God. However wounded and broken I am, I can still give shade to others. So she went out, started begging, and from the money she earned by begging, she started collecting orphans and looking after them. In appreciation of her work, people built an orphanage and she won many awards. More than 1,500 abandoned children became her children, grew up to be professional lawyers and doctors. But the most touching thing about her life is that one day her husband came as an old and poor man back to her, asking shelter. And she forgave him, the person who tried to kill her, took him in and said that I take you in not as my husband, but as my son. And she used to jokingly tell people, that is my eldest son, but he's a very naughty boy sometimes. So that is the largeness of the feminine. And it also makes me juxtapose it against a conversation I had with a lady close to her 60s. She had married this very rich man. And she told me, you know, everyone thinks I've married into such a wealthy family, but I've never felt wealthy because when my husband and in-laws wanted to give me wealth, they gave me diamonds, but I had no spending power of my own. Till recently, I didn't even have a bank account in my name. Now, having heard this, I was often thinking that did she even think she had a choice? Did she question whether she had a choice to make it otherwise? And then I came across a phenomenon who made her choices. So, the author of this book, who is Revati Roy? Not yet. Can we release the screen share? Not yet. Can we release all screen shares, please? I'll tell you when to bring on the next screen share. So this is the book, Who is Revati Roy? And there's quite a story behind this face. So December 16th, 2004 was a very fateful day in Revati's life. Her husband succumbed to diabetic coma and irreversible brain damage. And after prolonged hospitalization, the hospital bill came to 32 lakhs. And to cut a very long and painful story short, Revati borrowed money to pay this and in the bargain landed up in the women's jail on charges of fraud. And it was the first time Revati experienced something more than living hell. She says the conditions in the jail were so awful that they deliberately didn't have a fan at her height, or the bathroom and toilet doors weren't allowed to be closed, or there was no long blanket, because all these could be tools by which women would take their lives. And under those conditions, a death wish came really easy. So Revati decided that when she gets out of jail, she writes, all these women are powerless in the absence of any tool to make them self-reliant. I need to create that tool. I will build an army of women drivers so that we can drive ourselves and the rest of the world to their destination without you guys. When she got out of jail, she created for she a women taxi service, then Veera, which is not only a women taxi service, but a female drivers bureau. Slum-dwelling women were trained to drive these luxury-laden vehicles. Then she created Hey Didi, a ladies only delivery service which trains underprivileged girls to make deliveries on scooters linked to organizations like Flipkart and Amazon. And these girls earn more than 40,000 a month. Revati is happy to share her rock bottom with the world and to shout, if I can reach where I am today from rock bottom, anyone can reach anywhere. Next screen share. So while the screen share is ready, I'll read out Revati's words. We as women, not this one, the next one, Revati, the screen. Yes, we as women expect little from ourselves. We mostly realize our worth when we are pushed by fate. Why wait for catastrophe to strike before we wake up from our comfort zone and stand to our full height? Why shouldn't we expect more from ourselves? And I'm very happy that Revati is part of this Zoom meet. Revati had come to address us at a meet at JB Petit, and she had all of us hearing her story with tears in our eyes. And she's here. May I invite Revati to address us with a few of her words, please? Can she be spotlighted?
Done.
Yeah, Revati,
Yeah.
would you speak
Can
to
you
us?
hear me now?
Very well.
First of all, good evening, and it was so lovely to just hear three of you so far. Divyanshi, I really loved every word that you spoke, and it just shows the embodiment and the power of Ma. And I think all of us really need to just, kind of soak ourselves in what is being said and what really exists. Everything seems so irrelevant when you hear these words from all of you. I think you're great. All of you are brilliant. So yeah, like Anahita said, that is my story in short. So I always say that a rock bottom became the solid foundation on which I rebuilt my life. This is not my quote, it is J.K. Rowling. However, I had no lower to go. If anything, I would have to come up higher. And I think the one thing that didn't happen to me through all of this was, of course, I had very dejected moments. Um, I thought, is there anything happening outside which I can ever do once I get out of jail? You have a family, you have children, there are so many things which, you know, you don't know. The uncertainty is so palpable that the next moment you don't know what is going to happen. But yes, I did come out of all of that. And I think the one thing that kept me going was I felt, there's something much more to do for me and not just wallow in self pity and be there. Happened, okay, fine. I mean, nobody has seen the jail, nobody should see it. But the minute I came out, I also realized that there was a huge, huge social ostracism because somebody who goes to jail is not to be spoken to, is not to be dealt with. And post that, if I was to build a future for myself, it was a marathon effort. I mean, I really have to be extremely grateful and immense gratitude for people who associated with me post that period, because in the Indian scenario, it is not really easy for anybody to, kind of say that I'm joining hands with somebody who went to jail. And but I had loads of people who really did that with me, and I remain grateful to every person who's done that, and also every person who hasn't actually or did not at that point of time, because I think you do things because at that point of time you think that what you are doing is the right thing to do. So they didn't know whether it was right or wrong, and neither did I know whether I was doing anything right or wrong. But the fact is, life had to go on. And post that, I was featured on the cover of Forbes. I got an award from the Prime Minister. In fact, when the Prime Minister's office was awarding me the Niti Aayog award, I remember me emailing them and telling them that this is what happened with me. You know, I was in jail. So I said, if you still want to give me the award, I'm okay. But if you don't want to, I'm also okay, because I don't want to land up defending myself ever. You know, so everybody needs to know. So there was also a investor who came to me and wanted to invest money with me. And I remember telling him that I first went back to him. He had cut a check of 1 crore of rupees for me. And I went back to him and I said, please, before I take it, this is what happened with me. So do you still want to give me the money? He made it 2 crores, you know. So I think, you know, these kind of things really, it was a, I mean, I actually wanted him to know, because it was not correct that he would hear it from somebody else. And it's always a distorted version. When somebody else tries to tell somebody something, it's always a distorted version, because, you know, they really don't know what they're talking. I mean, what I went through, only I know. And, you know, my husband was in a comatose state. So there's a very beautiful thing written in the book, that my children were going through such a bad phase that time, because imagine parents, a father and mother, they had a father who could not talk, and they had a mother who would not talk. So they were, you know, stuck with having two parents with absolutely zero communication for different reasons. Imagine what they must have gone through. And today I remain extremely proud that my kids are normal. You know, they're really normal. I mean, under those circumstances, to turn out to be normal human beings is also not easy. And so am I. I'm also normal. So, you know, so anyway, so this has been in short my life, and I think you should carry on with your program.
Revati, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me, Anahita. And I think I'll try to stay on if I can. And all the best to all of you. And please read the book if you can. It's available on.
I finished it in 1 day, 1.5 days.
It's a very racy book. It's a very racy book. So thank you so much for having me, and my gratitude to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anahita. Both your conversation and the guests that you have brought on certainly have made the day. These are the living examples that inspire India today. And these are the examples which bring Indic feminism into the contemporary social scenario. It's certainly a very both inspirational as well as very moving when you hear someone who has gone through what she has gone through, and the ideals for which she stood. I mean, can we really imagine in today's day and age somebody going back and returning a check of 1 crore? It talks about the rock bed of value system that the person stands on. And that has been the effort of AuroYouth throughout, to make sure that that foundation is brought to the youth. The foundation of values, the foundation of course, ethics and morality, but something much higher. To take our conversation further this evening, I would like to request Ojasi Parameswaran to, take over the floor and share with us her thoughts on Indic feminism.
Namaste, everyone, and thank you, Srinivas ji. I'm very happy to share my thoughts in this beautiful forum, and I'm going to talk in next 5 to 7 minutes about the Indic feminism as to how we look at it in Indian heritage and tradition. And why I wish to bring this topic here is because yesterday's heritage, the past heritage, we as contemporary people, we look into the past. So it has flown from past to the present. But what we call today as contemporary, that is going to be tomorrow's heritage. Just imagine, today we have so many Bollywood movies which are popular and they will stay on, say 1,000 years from now. But you and I may not stay on what we have spoken orally here. Our tradition is oral tradition. So what we pass on orally to others, that also has to stay on. Tomorrow, after 1,000 years, those people, if they look only into the Bollywood prints and they ignore totally the oral tradition, they will think, oh, there were in 20th century, 21st century, there were 40-year-old men running behind 30-year-old women, and probably that was the whole of the society. And certainly we will not be happy with it, because oral tradition, the heritage is something that which is lived and not just that which is preserved and stored. In order to move in a secure way from present to the future, we need to take a pause and look back and understand how we should interpret, how we should understand our heritage. This is the reason why I bring this topic here. Now we know that our heritage is huge. Our tradition is very long, of thousands and thousands of years. And even within that, one topic is feminism, Indic feminism. So I'm going to bring quickly 5 points. They are totally based on my understanding, and I come from the Sri Aurobindo's background, where there is minimum, there is no brainwashing of how a woman should be and what is a man, and you are just totally out of that context. Coming from that gender-free background, I entered into Bhagavad Gita, then I moved on to Sanskrit, then I moved on to learning Sanskrit literature and study, and that's how my entry into the heritage is. So based on this free mindset, I have drawn 5 points of how to look at our Indic feminism heritage and tradition. The first point, what was really lived is huge, and what is available today as evidence is very small. And I'll only give examples because there is shortage of time. For example, in Vedas, we find Gargi and Maitreyi, who wrote the Riks of the Vedas. They were Brahmavadinis. They realized the Brahman. But only few are recorded. So we have to understand that there were certainly more than them. Those who are recorded are only few. So first point, reality versus availability. You have to understand this. Second point, even within that which is available, it is up to us on how we interpret it. So the second point is availability versus interpretation. And I give one example, and that should make it clear. Kalidas wrote Kumara Sambhavam, a drama, in which he explains the story of Shiva and Parvati. And in that, it is there is an explanation of Parvati did tapascharya. Now the second half is most important. Parvati did tapascharya. Second half, is it for getting Shiva as husband? Now that's the thing. Is it really that? What my mind, my heart says it. She did the tapas, she's a goddess. She did the tapas and purified the lower sexual energies and took them to a higher level. After her tapas, Parvati and Shiva married. But I cannot go in details here. It is a matter of academic research. And while doing that academic research, we need to have a strong heart. If we get emotionally lost in it, then our emotions cloud our thoughts. But I'm just mentioning here the second point, which is what is available need not be interpreted just the same way which everybody has interpreted. We have to have our own individual thinking. So second point, availability versus interpretation. The third point, popularity versus totality. This point is related to more related to literature, because when people write, artists, they are very creative people, the Sahityika, the literary people, they add in their own things. Take again Kalidasa's Abhijnana Shakuntala. He writes the drama of Dushyanta and Shakuntala. Shakuntala is a character very shy, timid. So obviously we will think that, oh, those days ladies were timid and shy. Okay, they could be. That is the popular notion, but that is not the totality. Just in the same Shakuntalam, the Shakuntalam written by Kalidasa is a story. Original story lies in Mahabharata. In Mahabharata, that Shakuntala is very heroic. Her character is totally different. But how many of us leave this popular Kalidasa's Abhijnana Shakuntalam and go to the original Shakuntala? How many of people know it, even because people only study superficially what is popular, that is available, and we make conclusions with it and we move on. So popularity and totality. This is the third point. We have to bear this in mind. The fourth point, I have named it as gender neutral critical thinking. Gender neutral critical thinking. Now, why I came to this point, one person sometime back, since I am only into Bhagavad Gita, wherever I go, I talk about Gita. That person started arguing with me, saying, why are you following Krishna? He only supported Arjuna no matter what. And see the Mahabharata war, how it happened. So initially I was like, okay, my topic is Gita. I get spiritual essence from it. My life gets sorted out. So why I should be bothered about Mahabharata? So that conversation got over at that point itself. But later on, our thoughts, they come back. Well, what could be the reason? What could be the real answer if I have to really answer this person? Then after few months, slowly the critical thinking, slowly the thoughts sink in. After a few months, I said, Mahabharata happened because of whom? People immediately answer, oh, it's because of Draupadi. Yeah, Draupadi. And then whose victory was it? Oh, Pandava's victory. Why? Is it not Draupadi's victory? Should we, after going through all the academic scholarly research, can we come to a conclusion, we may come to a conclusion that Krishna supported Arjuna in the Mahabharata war, not for Pandava's victory, but for Draupadi's victory. Now, this is called as gender neutral critical thinking, but I'm not hurrying to conclude like that. This thought of mine got inspired from a lecture by Dr. Sucheta Paranspe. I request all of you, if you are interested to dig more into this topic, her Facebook live series is there from BORI, Bhandarkar Oriental Research Institute. And the mind-boggling point which she told was, Draupadi's Vastra Haranam did not happen at all. Her cloth was only pulled, and all the details, I leave it to all the viewers to watch that lecture yourself. And there is a critical edition of Mahabharata, which is in formation at Bhandarkar Oriental Research Institute. But the point I want to make here is, our thinking, our critical thinking needs to be gender neutral. And this is one example I'm giving from my personal life experience. That's the fourth point. The fifth and the last point is, we all keep feeling, oh, from Veda's time till now, there is a decline of culture and everything. But there are two things. If we look at the outer forms, the external expressions, the life, the socio-cultural life, and if we look only from the viewpoint of women, there is a great progress. Where is the decline? Sometimes I wonder, where is the decline? Today's women have got the ability to tackle with anything and everything, whatever falls on their head from life as a teacher. That's the external part. But the inner part, the spiritual part, we say, oh, the Brahmavadinis, Gargi, Maitreyi, wow. And where are they now? Why? Is there no Sharada Devi? Ramakrishna Paramahamsa's wife. Now, I don't need to introduce Sharada Devi as someone's wife. She is herself, in herself. Is there no Mata Amrutanandamayi? Is there no Anandamayi Ma? So they are spiritual ladies. You just go to them or you just see their photo. You feel something nice. And then, of course, is there no Divine Mother? And they are not spiritual because we if you have to say, oh, even a woman is spiritual, then again it is like we demean them. It's like one slap you demean and another slap you praise them, and you are just sandwiched in between. So this thought does not even come to your mind when you go in front of such personalities, the spiritual personalities. So the essence of Indian heritage is still alive. And if it is alive from long, long past till now, it will certainly be alive in the future. And towards this future, Divine Mother and Sri Aurobindo are leading us. But of course, that topic towards the future, I leave it for the further discussion, and I stop here. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ojasi ji. Both Ojasi and her husband Param, we have known them in our inner circle for many years now. And her talk on the Bhagavad Gita in particular was very well received on the AuroYouth platform. So we are very happy to have you back, and look forward to having more sessions on these lines. Now I would request my dear friend Manoj Sharma ji to come and share his views. He has been doing phenomenal work on Nari Shakti as a part of the overall work of Sri Aurobindo Society. And he has joined us this evening and made special effort to join this evening, even though he had certain compelling personal situations. Thank you, Manoj bhai, for making the time and being with us. The floor is all yours.
नमस्कार. सबसे पहले तो मैं ये जो सिल्वर जुबली टॉक है AuroYouth का, इसके लिए आप सब आयोजकों को बहुत आभार व्यक्त करता हूं. आज ही मेरे पास दिन में उत्तर प्रदेश से, बिहार से विनोद जी का और मध्य प्रदेश से टेलीफोन कॉल्स आए कि ये इतना सुंदर जो आप लोग पोस्टर शेयर कर रहे हैं सारे ग्रुप्स में और जगह जगह, तो हमारा बहुत सारा क्षेत्र ऐसा रह जाएगा जहां लोग हिंदी ही जानते हैं. तो मैंने अनुमति ली और आप लोगों ने अनुमति दी, तो मैं अपनी बात हिंदी में रखता हूं. मित्रों, ये बहुत सुंदर विषय है जो आप लोगों ने लिया है, इंडिक फेमिनिज्म. और यहाँ मुझे याद आता है, इसमें मैं एक और डायमेंशन जोड़ना चाहता हूँ जो हिस्टोरिकल, ऐतिहासिक डायमेंशन है. और जब इतिहास की तरफ मैं जाता हूँ, मुझे सौभाग्य मिला, इंजीनियर के साथ साथ मैंने मास्टर्स किया हिस्ट्री में, कि वे सारी जो सिविलाइजेशंस हैं, वे सारी जो सभ्यताएं हैं, उनको सम्मान की दृष्टि से देखा गया सारे संसार में, जहां नारियों को सम्मान दिया गया. भारत तो इसमें बहुत अग्रणी रहा है, और उसका बहुत सीधा सा कारण ये है कि हमारे यहाँ स्त्री को केवल एक देह के रूप में नहीं देखा गया. जैसा कि हमारे से पूर्ववर्ती जो स्पीकर हैं, उन्होंने बहुत सुंदर तरीके से बताया कि एक पावर है, एक शक्ति है जो अलग अलग नाना रूप धारण करके आती है यहाँ प्रकृति में. और आगे अगर समय होगा तो हम उस पर विस्तार से चर्चा करेंगे. और उसका एक रोल मॉडल अगर हम कहें तो संसार को भारत ने दिया है. Once upon a time, mother was discussing with some sadhak, and all of a sudden she said कि नारी को शक्ति कहते हैं भारत में खासकर. डू यू नो कि उनको शक्ति क्यों कहते हैं? और फिर माँ ने स्वयं कहा कि क्योंकि उनके भीतर आध्यात्मिक शक्ति होती है. That is the source of all the powers. It took me back to 1907 in a pamphlet released by Sri Aurobindo by the name Bhavani Mandir. और उसमें श्री अरविंद लिखते हैं भारतीयों में एक ही चीज की कमी है, वो है शक्ति। और फिर उसमें वो 3-4 शक्तियों का जिक्र करते हैं, फिजिकल पावर, मेंटल पावर, नैतिक शक्ति, धार्मिक शक्ति, और आखिरी में कहते हैं आध्यात्मिक शक्ति। और उसको अंडरलाइन करते हुए कहते हैं आध्यात्मिक शक्ति जो इन सारी शक्तियों का मूल है। और माँ क्या कहती है, स्त्रियों में प्रमुखता किस चीज की है, आध्यात्मिक शक्ति की। तो इससे हमको ये मालूम चलता है कि हमारे इतिहास में हमारे जो कल्चर है उसमें कितना महत्व दिया गया। क्योंकि माँ ने इसमें आगे जोड़ा कि केवल शक्ति उनके अंदर है ऐसा नहीं है, उस आध्यात्मिक शक्ति को, उस आध्यात्मिकता को मैनिफेस्ट करने की क्षमता भी उनमें है, उसको संप्रेषित करने की भी क्षमता जो है वो स्त्रियों में पुरुषों के मुकाबले अलग होती है। तो ये इस बैकग्राउंड के साथ में जाता हूं, क्योंकि शक्ति जो है वो केवल तलवार की शक्ति नहीं होती, एक शीतल शौर्य भी होता है। तो मैं पलक जी से बोलूंगा कि कुछ स्क्रीन शॉट जो है उसको शेयर करेंगी तो हम लोग उसमें समझ सकेंगे कि कितने नाना प्रकार के इसमें रूप रहते हैं शक्तियों के, जिसमें हम लोग देखते हैं सबसे पहले तो अगर हम इसी को देखें कि किस तरीके से भारत में जो रानियां रही हैं या जो लीडर्स रही हैं और एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर्स रही हैं, उन्होंने किस तरीके से अपना राजकाज संभाला है, इसमें बहुत सारे उदाहरण दिए जा सकते हैं। ये जो मैं स्लाइड आपके सामने प्रस्तुत कर रहा हूं, इसमें आप देखेंगे मेगस्थनीज ने बहुत पहले इंडिका में वर्णन किया था और उस समय उन्होंने बताया था कि पांड्या की जो नारियां हैं वे अपने क्षेत्र में प्रशासन की कितनी अच्छी क्षमता रखती हैं। उसी तरह जो चंद्रगुप्त सेकंड हुआ तो उसकी जो बेटी थी प्रभावती, उसने भी जो है जो एडोलेसेंट जो उनके सारे राजकुमार थे उनकी देखभाल की। और थोड़ा भारत में ऊपर की तरफ जाते हैं तो हम कश्मीर में देखते हैं, वहां एक सुगंधा नाम की नारी है जो अपने पति राजा शंकर बर्मन के साथ जो है वो सैनिकों के अभियान पे गई थी। रानी दिद्दा है। तो इस तरीके से हम देखते हैं वहां रानी विजय सेन है। ये केवल बात उसकी नहीं हो रही है कि किस तरीके से इन्होंने तलवार के साथ काम किया, एक दूसरा एस्पेक्ट भी होता है शौर्य का, जो होता है सहन शक्ति का, जो बलिदान करने का। और यहाँ मुझे स्मरण आता है राजस्थान की बहुत महान नारी पन्ना धाय का, जिन्होंने अपने पुत्र को, जिनके पुत्र का नाम चंदन था, और वे धाय माँ कहलाती हैं क्योंकि वो धाय का रोल अदा करती थी वहां। और राजकुमार जो उदय था उसको मारने के लिए जब बलवीर आता है जो उसका सौतेला भाई था, तो वो जो है अपने बेटे को उदय की जगह पे वहां पे बिस्तर पे लेटा देती है और बलवीर उनके बेटे का वध करती है। एंड यू सी द इनर पावर जिसकी अभी चर्चा हो रही थी कि उनके आंख से अगर आंसू गिर जाता तो बलवीर को ये संदेह हो जाता कि ये शायद इसका पुत्र नहीं है। और उसके पहले उन्होंने उसमें उनके जो सक्सेसर था राणा सागा की डायनेस्टी का, उनको जो है राजकुमार उदय को वहां से निकाल दिया। ये भी एक तरीके का शौर्य है। जीजाबाई का उदाहरण हम देखते हैं, जीजाबाई ने कैसे अपनी सारी परिस्थितियों में ढलते हुए भी एक व्यक्ति को, एक बालक को एक महान साम्राज्य का सम्राट बनाया। नेक्स्ट प्लीज। आगे हम देखते हैं तो ये हमें गोवा की राजकुमारी का इसमें हम वर्णन देखते हैं। उसमें नैकी देवी है जिन्होंने 1171 से 1175 तक जो है उन्होंने काम किया। मध्य भारत में अगर हम देखते हैं तो रानी दुर्गावती है, और रानी दुर्गावती ने यहाँ जबलपुर के आसपास जो है एक बहुत बड़ी डायनेस्टी चलाई अपने जीवन काल में, और वे सब तरीके की युद्ध कला में निपुण थी। फिर माई भागो का हम देखते हैं, उनको भी पंजाब में जो है 1705 में मुक्तसर के युद्ध में उन्होंने मुगलों की जो 10,000 की सेना थी उसका उन्होंने सामना किया था। और उसमें भी अंगरक्षिका भी थी कि जो गुरु गोविंद सिंह जी हैं उनके साथ उनको सेवा करने का अवसर मिला। एंड रानी लक्ष्मीबाई का जिक्र तो हम करेंगे ही, झांसी की रानी, जिनके विषय में कहा जाता है कि अकेले उन्होंने पूरे युद्ध में ऐसा एक जौहर दिखाया कि जिसके वजह से सारे संसार में आज भी उनकी कीर्ति याद रखी जाती है। नेक्स्ट प्लीज। और अभी भी हम देखते हैं तो भारत की सेना में कितनी सारी महिलाएं हैं। मैं सिर्फ एक दो लोगों का उदाहरण लेके आगे बढ़ूंगा। गुंजन सक्सेना है, 1994 में उन्होंने भारतीय सेना को ज्वाइन किया और वे पहली महिला पायलट है जिन्होंने इसको गौरव को हासिल किया। इसी तरह शांति टिग्गा है, तो वो जो है पहली महिला जवान थी। 35 एज में उन्होंने 2 बच्चों की माँ होते हुए और इतना सुंदर जो है उदाहरण भारत में रखा है। तो मेरा कहने का अर्थ यह है कि ऐतिहासिक पृष्ठभूमि भी भारत की ये कहती है कि हमारा जो पेडिस्टल है जहां से भारत की महिलाओं ने एक दिशा दिखाई है संसार को, उस पर अभी हमें और बहुत सा काम करने की आवश्यकता है। थैंक यू वेरी मच। Srinivas ji?
Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes, yes, please carry on.
Yeah, it took me a little while to get back on. So we have seen Manoj bhai cover the examples ranging from the historical to the contemporary. We have had Anahita ji share a few more, a few examples in the beginning on the contemporary feminism and what it means in the 21st century India. Now, what I will request Divyanshi to do is to spend a little time on contemporary feminism and the Western feminism and the Indic perspective of feminism. She can walk us through some observations and her comments relating to this aspect, because many times when the word feminism comes up in India, it is often, at least when you look at it from the point of view of feminist organizations nationally, they draw a lot of inspiration and also they model a lot of their own activities and activism, if I might say, on contemporary Western feminism. So we thought we should have some discussion of that and go through some of those details. So to do that, I request Divyanshi to take the floor, please.
Thank you. So actually, when we say the word feminism, or actually most of the subjects that we say, be it psychology, sociology, we see thinking that, we're talking about a universal subject. But more often than not, what we know in the name of psychology is Western psychology. What we know in the name of feminism is Western feminism. So this is just to kind of acknowledge that what we know in the mainstream, and we've been calling these terms, it's one part of the story. And what I'm not going to do today is to oppose that story, but just show that that's just one part of the entire picture. So with that, I'll begin to kind of share my screen. Yes. So when you Google the word feminism, you get a lot of pictures like this, which is really great, but the kind of sense you get from these pictures is that there is a fight. Feminism is about a fight, and this one is actually one of the better of the pictures because the fight is happening in different skin colors, showing that the fight is not just, or the feminism is not just white feminism, but also belongs to other races as well. So which is itself a little bit more enlightened than just like white feminism. So what we have as the mainstream definition of feminism, that it is a fight, and that fight is not against men, it is against patriarchy. So that has been the, the mainstream definition of feminism, which is a great definition, but it is one of the many possible definitions. So all these definitions that you see in this flower mandala is also feminism. And we have to begin to consciously acknowledge that this too is feminism. To give you an example, honoring and learning from homemakers, that is feminism. Caring for Mother Nature, that is feminism. connecting to the feminine qualities within, that is feminism. Invoking the divine masculine, that is feminism. Connecting to Mother Nature through gardening, through barefoot walk, that is feminism. Surrender to the divine Shakti within, that is feminism. Harmonious, intimate relationships of love, that is feminism. Leading an organization as a mother would lead an organization, that is feminism. Learning how to cook as a modern day girl or guy, that too is feminism. Finding who one truly is beyond sex and gender, that too is feminism. So there is like a lot of definitions of feminism, but we make it only about this one definition, that it is a fight against patriarchy. It is so much more than that. I'm not saying it is not a fight against patriarchy. Patriarchy is great. Let's all go gaga over it. No, but that's just one definition, and we have to see the whole picture. So in order to see the whole picture, I came up with a little diagram. So I took the Cartesian plane and I've mapped against it. So on the horizontal axis, you have from the spiritual essence to the psychological reality to the social manifestation. So what we have in the mainstream prevalent feminism is a focus only on the social. The psychological is beginning to come in through a little bit of yin and yang, kind of entering the sociology and psychology a little bit, but the spiritual is kind of completely out of our purview. And then on the vertical axis, we have the golden past, the present, future, and the golden future. So what is it that I'm calling as the golden past and the golden future? So much of, in the prevalent mainstream feminism, there is no conception that, in its very origin of things were beautiful. So it's only going back to a little bit of the past and seeing already when things had begun to become very degenerated. So it's looking at things at a very, how they were degenerated and how we are working towards making them better towards a near future. But there is no idea that, in the Vedic period or in when things were born in their origin, there was something of the beautiful within them. To take the example of, say, for instance, Varnas. We know Varnas as mostly as caste in an extremely degenerated manner, which none of us would approve of. But in its very original essence, the Varnas was one of the most profoundest gift of the Indian civilization to the world, which is that of the four fundamental soul forces at work, that of the four fundamental universal powers of the mother at work being used to create a perfect society. What a wonderful gift. Now, we are not aware either of the golden past, nor are we aware in the mainstream prevalent feminism of the golden future, of the possibility of a future where Mother and Sri Aurobindo is talking about, a completely new species taking birth. So we are really operating within the narrowness of what we are seeing in the past as well as the future. And within that also we have our blinders, like, how Ojasi pointed out, that I wouldn't go in detail, but within, even to look at our, immediate past, we look at with blinders. So within that, this is where I'm placing mainstream prevalent feminism. It's a part of the entire picture. It's not the whole picture. So it's a lot to do with the social aspect towards the immediate past and the immediate future, and missing out on the golden past, the golden future, and the spiritual essence. To take an example of how this is not just something philosophical that I've put on a nice Cartesian plane, but real something that can be extremely, if we continue with this narrow view, can extremely be damaging. For me, I had once done a study with the National Mission for Empowerment of Women on the employment of women. And I did that study and I carried through it for 2 years, and then I dropped that study. That's the only project in my life that I dropped halfway. And the reason, why I dropped that project is, in the middle of doing that study, I realized that I have a bias. I have a bias, and that bias is I'm saying a career woman is superior than a housemaker. And I said that I don't believe in it any longer. and I cannot continue with that study because it's biased. And that's how a lot of these, prejudices and assumptions and biases get in. So for instance, right now the mainstream view is that the woman is a suppressed, in the society she is really suppressed. And that's not just a view, it's also to a huge extent a great reality, a living reality. And the woman is beginning to seek independence, and the ideal that is kind of propagated is that of a career woman. All very great, but in the process what we are doing is, what is happening is, we are really not seeing the value and the worth of the housemaker, of our mothers and grandmothers who've been the wisdom holders. We are literally, even the women themselves are introducing themselves as, I'm just a housewife. What all does it entail to actually run a household? If one really goes deep within it, one has a model of what a future organization, what a future transformative organization can really look like. So this thing who, we are calling as the suppressed woman who wears the sindoor and, who's dominated by patriarchy, in its essence, in its very essence, when in the Indian framework this was born, was really the sacred mother. It was a civilization that absolutely adored, that put at a pedestal the love and service, which is what the sacred mother really embodied. Now that has degenerated into the form of a sacred woman, but not just the fact that, there is a sacred woman of the past and that we have to go towards a career woman. There is, even in the future, there's a greater possibility of the Shakti leader. So let's look at very briefly, what do I mean by the sacred mother? So if you really look at a true mother in depth, how she's really holding a household with the emotional intelligence, as we call it today, with the organization, with a very key awareness of each one's need, with this absolutely spiritual ability to put yourself out of the story, put your own ego out of the story, and just serve selflessly with the perfection and details and love, and as wisdom holders of the past leaping towards the future. Actually, there is a lot that our organizations, our entrepreneurs, our administrators can learn from that homemaker than just, getting her into, let me get the homemaker educated, let me get the women of the villages educated, which is a part of the story that's certainly required. But the other part of the story is to go back to the grandmothers, to go back to the homemakers and learn from them. The Sanskrit word matra means the one who gives a finite shape to something that is essentially infinite. And that the mother principle is really the power of love and Shakti. That is what is being placed at the very heart of Indic feminism. And when we are referring to mother, I'm not just referring to, the biological child. Anybody who becomes an instrument of giving a form to that which is formless is a mother. Anybody who nurtures is a mother. So what is that thing of the mother leadership or the mother model of leadership, which is going to be the crux behind finding that golden future of the Shakti leadership, which has the aspect of Maheshwari, which has the aspect of Mahakali, which has the aspect of Mahalakshmi, which has the aspect of Mahasaraswati. I'm just running. Yeah. You unmuted. Okay. So just like on the vertical trail, we went from the golden past to the golden future. On the horizontal train, from the spiritual to the social aspect requires more and more women to become socially and financially independent, which is absolutely necessary. And that's what the mainstream prevalent feminism focuses on. But there's also the psychological aspect, which is to bring in feminine qualities of compassion and organization in public affairs. And then there is the spiritual angle, which is the openness to the transformative power of the divine Shakti, which actually means two things which may seem contradictory, but actually they go hand in hand. The one, as Ojasi was referring to, is actually just transcending gender, what she was referring to as gender neutral. But the other aspect that goes hand in hand is the birth of the true feminine. Because behind feminism, apart from all the quest around equality, there is also somewhere a quest: who is a woman? Who is a man? Who is the true feminine? And to be able to birth it and bring it into life. It's like Nolinikanta Gupta in his book about women. One of the things he says that, unlike men, women do not have many absolutely radical and transformative role models. But that is the opportunity that we have to birth something which is that of the unknown, to birth a role model that even we do not know about. And with that, I come to the next slide, which is, where does integral yogic feminism come? It comes at the intersection of that which is spiritual and that which is our golden future. So with that, I think that's it. And here is a very beautiful photograph of the Mother Nature itself as a woman. And actually, one of the insights that, at one point in time in life I had is at the crux. So feminism is not just one of the many issues that exist on the planet. It is somewhere really at the heart of
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So it is somewhere really at the heart.
Just one second. There is a mute issue. We'll just try to address it. Please continue, Divyanshi. Please go ahead and conclude.
Sorry, I'll keep going a little over with that. But okay, the one last thing that I really wanted to say is feminism is not just one of the many issues. It is somewhere really at the heart of the issues that we are facing on earth, that which is a disregard for the divine Shakti, as Manoj Pai pointed out, which is why, we have been really trashing Mother Earth, or the way, we've been really treating this power. It manifests in different ways, but in many ways, it is really at the heart of the several symptoms and the several issues that we see on earth. With that, I close.
Thank you so much, Divyanshi. Thank you. You've really made an effort to bring in many themes of feminism into this short span, and you have tried to bring it to the point where we have made our journey. One of the things that I would like to highlight as a part of this session is that there are many aspects of feminism that we are trying to touch upon, and the idea was to paint the large canvas of feminism in the light of Sanatana Dharma as Indic feminism, and in terms of what feminism means from the point of view of affirmative spirituality of Mother and Sri Aurobindo, where consciousness and the soul are the central points. So in that process, we are trying to cover a very broad canvas. We may not have the opportunity to go into detail on every single aspect, yet at the same time, for the participants here, we are trying to touch upon all of the themes, and as you get an opportunity to fill into your feedback, if any of these themes resonate with you, please mention it if you wish to hear more about those themes. And also, we will have questions and answers at the end of this session. We're almost towards the end. So on these themes, if you wish to ask any specific set of questions, and particularly if you have in mind any particular speaker who has either spoken about that theme, or you would like to hear the response from that speaker, you can mention that. So we have talked about Indic feminism. We have talked about the cultural context, the historical context, the heritage of our feminism. We have seen comparison with Western feminism, and also we have seen contemporary exploration of feminism and what it means in 21st century, as we stand today. What about the future? I mean, how are we looking at feminism from a forward-looking point of view? While I will not be able to cover all of the panelists in this section, I will just call upon maybe one or two briefly to share a couple of thoughts, maybe in a concise manner. I know many of the panelists must have put together many points, but given that we are a little bit, we would like to make more time for Q&A, and we are already in that Q&A slot as we had originally planned. So maybe for a couple of minutes, Ojasi, would you like to share a little bit about the forward-looking view? Or if you feel you've already covered it, you can let me know and then we can move to someone else.
Yes, thank you, Srinivas ji. I have been looking forward to put forth this forward-looking view. I'll just cover only one point. We have three things as told by Divine Mother and Sri Aurobindo: thought, emotion, and body. I will say thought has no gender, but thinking is affected by gender. Emotions have no gender, but the way we feel can be biased by gender, both in a positive and negative way. Body, in its spiritual existence, is actually genderless, but the way it is functioning, the way it responds to the outer forces of the world, that is based on gender. And of course, if you look at the matter itself, we can say it is both. It is gender, as well as if you look at the physical transformation which Divine Mother did on her own body, then where is the gender? We can also debate on that. This is the theory, but the future which Divine Mother and Sri Aurobindo have laid down for us is this, and I will just try to summarize it within less than a minute. Our spiritual future is, first, our soul is imprisoned, locked, or lost into this gender-biased combo of thought, emotion, and body. So the first thing is to come out of it, to get the freedom from this gender-biased thought, emotion, body. But that does not mean when we come out, we become free. That does not mean that we will become genderless or something. If at all we can receive that supramental power which Divine Mother and Sri Aurobindo have brought down, it will change our mind, it will change our emotion. And if we are still that much capable in this one life, then it will change our body as well. And still its expression will be dependent, will be not dependent, will be varying from person to person. So if I am a woman's body, my expression of what I receive from Divine Mother and Sri Aurobindo's supramental power, my expression will go along happily, harmoniously with me as a woman, and somebody else as a man, and somebody else as a transgender, and all the various genders we find today in the society. So we don't need to worry or bother, my God, if I become gender free, where does my gender go? Divine will take care of it. And spiritual future is being laid down for us by Sri Aurobindo and the Divine Mother, because when they did the sadhana, they did it at the universal level. So the future is already being manifested in them. We only have to receive it and make it happen in our own individual and collective lives. Thank you. That's all. I will stop with that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ojasi. Manoj bhai, would you like to share a couple of minutes of your thoughts on forward-looking view? I wish we had more time, but I really would like to give the floor to the audience and let them ask you more questions and interact with all of you. You have so much to give them. So if we can keep our remarks a little short, we can move forward to the question and answer session.
मैं अपनी बात को बहुत सीमित करते हुए, क्योंकि मेरे जो साथी पैनलिस्ट हैं उन्होंने बहुत सारी बातों को बहुत अच्छे से रखा है। एक संदर्भ में माता जी ने कहा था, क्योंकि अभी जो नारी आप खुद में शक्ति है, उसको शक्ति देने की बातें सारे संसार में होती है, ना तो उनको बराबरी का दर्जा देने की बात मुझे ठीक लगती है, क्योंकि वो तो ऑलरेडी हमारे बराबर हैं, बल्कि हमसे आगे हैं। एक संदर्भ में माता जी ने बोला था कि कोई भी कानून स्त्री को तब तक बंधन मुक्त नहीं कर सकता जब तक वह स्वयं ही बंधन मुक्त ना हो जाए। इसी प्रकार पुरुष भी अधिकार जमाने की आदतों के होते हुए तब तक इस दास्ता से मुक्त नहीं हो सकता जब तक वह अपने अंदर की सारी दास्ता से मुक्त ना हो जाए। सो सारा कार्य जो है वो हमारे भीतर होना है। तो ये मदर का एक रिमार्क है। और जैसा पहले भी कहा गया, मदर नेचर से लेके वो जो पराम्बिका है वो नाना रूपों में काम करती है। और अगर समय होगा, थोड़ा सा बचेगा, तो उसके ऊपर हम लोग चर्चा कर सकते हैं। बट दिस इज फॉर श्योर, माँ ने जो कहा है कि आने वाले समय में ये जो जेंडर की जितनी अभी चहल पहल दिखाई देती है, ये क्रंदन दिखाई देता है, ये नहीं होने वाला, ना होना चाहिए। और वैसे भी जो लोग थोड़ा सा गहरे अध्यात्म में जुड़े हैं, तो वो इस बात को जानते समझते हैं कि हमारे सेवन बॉडीज रहती हैं, 7 शरीर होते हैं। और ये जो जेंडर का प्रभाव है, ये सिर्फ शुरू के 3 या 4 लेवल तक रहता है, उसके बाद फिर इसका असर नहीं रहता। सो उस दिशा में हमको निरंतर आगे चलना है। और इतनी बात करके मैं क्वेश्चन आंसर्स के लिए सबको आमंत्रित, जैसा आप चाहें वैसा कर सकते। थैंक यू।
Thank you, Manoj bhai. Anahita, would you like to quickly share a few thoughts of yours, and then we can proceed?
Okay, I'll be very brief because I do feel question answers is the most important part of a panel discussion. I would just like to say that yes, looking at it at a very external perspective, men seem to have a head start over women in many ways. But Sri Aurobindo says the hand that hurls Jupiter into space spends all its cunning to fashion a curl. Whose is this hand? That one consciousness which invests itself equally into hurling Jupiter, into making man, into making women. And what Western feminism looks at as protecting women from men, women's right from men, I think they miss out on the one trump card that every human being has, whether they are men or women, and that is consciousness. And consciousness is the ultimate protection, which if we tune into, it can be an equalizer, it can be a protection. Women have to get rid of their age-old mentality that we need a man in this world to survive. They need themselves just as men need themselves. So the point is to recognize that beyond duality of male and female, there is that one consciousness which is the trump card to win any battle in life, the divine consciousness which is equally present in all of us. That's all. Thank you, Srinivas.
Thank you so much, Anahita. We had scheduled the session this evening for around 90 minutes, and the idea was to have around 60 minutes of interaction and 30 minutes of Q&A, give or take a little bit, something on those lines. And we have indeed covered a very, very large panorama, starting with the Vedic civilization and the feminism there, to where we are today, and how to go forward. Many of us here are spiritual seekers in our own right. Many of us have been associated with Mother and Sri Aurobindo. The heritage of India talks about Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Matru Rupena Samsthitam, and it invokes the divine feminine aspect. And we know the Matru Rupena Samsthitam, but actually, if we go back to that particular scripture, there are around 20 to 25 different aspects of life that are mentioned as the aspects of Devi, including work, including sleep, including illusion, including ignorance, darkness, light. Every aspect of who we are is in some way representative of the divine Shakti and the element flowing through us. Coming from that Indic heritage, we today are moving towards yoga sadhana. We are all sadhaks in some way or the other, attempting to do some form of spiritual pursuit. And one of the milestones of spiritual pursuit, when we take a Bhagavad Gita or when we study integral yoga, one of the milestones is about Sakshi Purusha, Sakshi Bhava, being able to step back in one's own consciousness as the witness and perceive the universal energies using us as the instrument, nimitta. and letting the divine Shakti flow through us. When we read Sri Aurobindo, at many places he speaks about how the divine Shakti that is flowing through us is the one that is causing the spiritual evolution. It is the divine Shakti that is making the evolution go forward. It is the divine Shakti that is carrying the spiritual effort inside of us and helping us grow to higher states of consciousness. The Ardhanarishwara is in each of us, both as the Sakshi Bhava and the Shakti that is flowing through us. This is the vast range that we have covered today. As we, I will just hand it back to Palak now to take us through the feedback and then through the Q&A. And of course, at this point, I will thank all the panelists, but this is not the end of the session. So I just want to thank the panelists for all the wonderful inputs that you have given and the elevation that you have given to this particular session. So Palak, over to you.
Thank you, Srinivas Uncle, and thank you to all the panelists. Like, I think I just wanted to continue listening to all of these thoughts, and I think such a discussion has never happened, or at least I have not been witness to such a discussion with like just thoughts flowing and thoughts that are really unheard of and are really revolutionary and path breaking. So yeah, like lots of gratitude to everybody for sharing that. I am sharing the feedback form with all the participants on group, and I will request everybody to really take a minute and help fill that up. How that will help us is like, we will understand if these sessions are really useful to you and what is it that we should continue doing. What are the kinds of topics that you would want us to kind of conduct, and sessions that you would want us to hold, and yeah, that will just help us serve each other much better. So I'll take a pause and give a minute to everybody to open the form and fill it up very quickly. And in case some of you have questions, you can just feel free to put them on chat box, or you can let us know and we can give you time to ask your question yourself as well. Thank you, everyone. So while everybody is filling up the form, we have our first question from Vishwas. How can the modern society find a balance between the housewife and an earning woman? I can repeat the question. How can the modern society find a balance between the housewife and an earning woman? I would like to invite Divyanshi to share her thoughts, given that she had also touched upon this point in a very beautiful manner. Divyanshi, would you want to share something to this question from Vishwas?
There are a few points here, something that, forget about how the modern society can do it, beginning with how we can start finding that balance. So first is to begin with honoring the housewife. How do we speak about house managers? There is almost like a subtle way of looking down upon, I'm just a housewife, or this is just a housewife. Can we speak about it with way more respect and honor, which is real and authentic? That's one. And if you are somebody yourself in the field of organization, administration, entrepreneurship, can you look at learning from our housemakers, learning from women? Because my mother has also kind of spoken about how women are very natural organizers, and that's their very natural power. So what can we really learn from women as administrators, as organizers? The other is, and this is also prevalent in the modern day feminism, on the equitable distribution of household chores. But the thing is, unless you see household chores as a burden, as something that's the least thing you would want to do, then that equitable distribution is always going to be a little bit of that battle. But what we need to see the household work and chores, of course, with the use of technology and everything, but see them also as a work, as a process of sadhana. Like, for instance, brooming of the room is an excellent process of purification of the ego. Cleaning the toilet, an excellent practice for cleaning of the ego. So once you really begin to see these aspects that we really kind of ourselves don't want to do, find them as boring, find them as, really not valuable, paid less, the moment we kind of begin to shift our perspective and really see it as areas of transformation, they begin to become like that. And then in terms of the earning woman, the earning aspect of it, can we see it less of as livelihood, whereas livelihood is in itself important, but really more of a pursuit of, one of our students once wrote in a write-up, she said, I'm pursuing a profession that has never been born. So really take the aspect of work as a pursuit of something which is new, which is really giving birth to feminine qualities, feminine essence, and the divine Shakti in the work, and really lead to professions that have never been born. So that's what some of the thoughts that came to be. Maybe the other panelists would like to add something to that.
Ojasi ji, Anaita, Manoj uncle, would any of you want to add something to that?
I would just say that for a woman to balance between household and career, the mindset of her family context has to change. There are various cultures where it's considered not okay for a man to go to the kitchen. The whole upbringing is such that there's this rigid division of labor. Only a woman's supposed to do this and a man is not supposed to do that. And I think that has to be broken down to make it a more functional and harmonious setup, where the woman is supported by her mother-in-law, her husband, everyone, and it's not looked upon as this is your baby and I'm not going to help you with that.
Can I just add something to what Divyanshi and Anahita said?
Sure. Please go ahead.
So basically the stigma has to go away. If someone is a housewife, and when housewives started becoming earning women, there was a stigma. My God, she is quitting house and going. Now that women are earning, again a stigma comes. So is she really taking care of house? So again the stigma comes. Both sides slap is not required. The point is the idea that woman is doing whatever she is doing it for the sake of family is only 50% of the truth. A woman is doing for herself also because she likes it. So some woman, if she likes to be a housewife, let her be. Another one, if she wants her husband to help her in her household chores, and there are men these days who are choosing that, they're saying, okay, let their wife Okay, you like to earn, you go, I will take care of the full-fledged house. So house husbands are coming. I think for the first time I'm uttering this word. So house husbands are coming. Again, the stigma from house husbands has to go away. And the choice has to be left to the woman for herself, for what she wants. That's how the harmony will come. When two choices match, choice of a husband and a choice of a wife, naturally there will be harmony.
Wow. Like, yeah, I am. Yeah, uncle, please go on.
एक चीज जोड़ सकता हूँ?
Yes, uncle, please go on.
एक बात तो ये है कि ये जो प्रश्न पूछा गया है वो ठीक ही बताया गया, असली काम तो भीतर करने का है। एक्चुअली स्त्री और पुरुष जो है ना, वो कॉम्पिटिटर नहीं है, वो एक दूसरे को कॉम्प्लीमेंट करने के लिए है, एक दूसरे के पूरक है। और ये चीज में जितनी भूमिका पुरुष की है घर में समझाने की, उतनी ही स्त्री की भी है कि हम लोग प्रतिद्वंदी नहीं है, हम लोग एक दूसरे के पूरक हैं। और इसकी शुरुआत भीतर से होती है। सो यदि आपके पास समय हो तो मैं आपको एक बहुत सुंदर कविता सुनाता हूँ, जो शायद, क्योंकि हमारा समय भी हो रहा है, अगर कोई प्रश्न है तो ले सकते हैं, अदरवाइज आई विल टेक अ स्मॉल पोएम which will tell the story of the woman consciousness and as well as
I'll just come back to you, Manoj bhai, on this.
Okay.
Yeah, and one of the things that Ojasi mentioned, I just wanted to highlight in all seriousness, is that the concept of house husband is not only somewhat emerging, but I can personally tell you one of my dear friends of my age has been a house husband for close to 15 years. And a phenomenally successful guy at that, having graduated from IIT and done a lot of things and settled. And yet he single-handedly raised his two daughters while his wife was a full-time employee staying at home, and successfully. Today, the elder girl is graduated and I think she's got admission in one of the Ivy League universities. And he was the one who was looking after much of her upbringing. So these are themes that are gradually emerging, somewhat new to many of us, but yet been around. Divyanshi, go ahead and then we'll go to the next question as well, please.
Just kind of wanted to add from my own life. So I am not somebody, as I was kind of growing up, I didn't learn how to cook, neither was I encouraged to learn how to cook. I was seen as a person who's studying. And so that was never like a part of my upbringing. So I'm not very good at it. And I'm in the process of kind of finding my footing with it. But my partner is really happy to cook 2 meals a day for me. And it's not like, even for that matter, somebody has to be a house husband, but that support is really there. And I feel a lot of this support really depends on how do you weave. I think Manoj Bhai put it really well. How do you weave that relationship between the man and the woman? When this is a relationship which is weaved on a deeper love, then it's very easy for that support and that complementarity to flow without necessarily having to fight. We have to be equal or this has to be like that. But when that relationship of love, of a deeper love is formed, it's very, very natural.
Yeah. Back to you, Palak. Palak, your audio is not coming through.
Hello, am I audible now?
Please go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry, I had a slightly bad internet. So first of all, I would really like to thank everyone for sharing such thoughts. I have I'm personally kind of taking in a lot, so which is why that pause before asking or before going to the next question. So the second question is an anonymous question. There are many patriarchal rituals we follow as part of marriage and other functions. How do we go about these?
Go ahead, Ojasi.
Yeah, Divyanshi.
Yeah,
Okay,
just repeat
Ojasi.
the
Yeah.
question once. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, the question is, there are many patriarchal rituals we follow as a part of marriage and other functions. How do we go about these?
Right. So when we say the word ritual and relate it in marriage rituals, it is related to the religion. Yeah. A religious ritual has two aspects. One is the external, which usually gets modified as per the time changes. And there is one essence, which is spiritual, the sanctity of it, the purity of it, for the sake of which we do the ritual. Now, when we decide that this is patriarchal ritual, that decision has to be taken in the right spirit. For that, we have to go behind the ritual and understand the spiritual essence of it. Then we have to decide what is patriarchal and what is not. Even then, if you want to change it, you should have the authority to it. Someone who really knows the religion in the religious way, the ritual, and that will go back to the Vedic time. Someone who can really interpret the Vedas in the right way. In a marriage, you take oath in front of Agni. And what does Agni represent in Vedas is you require a huge experience, not data or knowledge or scholarly studies, but you need the experience. So it should be done based on that, to change or not to change. Yeah. And even to label it whether it is patriarchal or not.
In fact, I might add here that India is presently going through a huge churn. In a way, it is good to see these questions because I think somewhere for 50 years we had a stasis where much of India was interpreted through the lens of Western understanding. Because please keep in mind that in 1857, it was decided not to publish anything further in Sanskrit. So subsequently, most of the written material we have in the last 150, 170 years has come to us from local languages or mostly English. And much of what we understand as Indology today, which defines what is patriarchal and what is not patriarchal in the Indic sense, actually comes through a filtration of Western understanding. So first of all, the very question has to be understood as coming from our educational system, which has taken interpretations of our Vedic knowledge in the Western sense, filtered out anything that makes the local indigenous population proud of its heritage. Most of that was separated because when a ruler is framing the educational syllabus, he doesn't want the ruled to appreciate his own culture. So many of the elements of the educational system were filtered out before our independence. And after independence, much of what we read or understand continues to be what was there before independence. We didn't go through an Indicization of the educational system. In fact, India is still waiting for that. So given all of that, we should keep in mind that what we understand, and it's very difficult because I myself am a convent educated student. My thinking has come from convent education. And to decondition myself has been taking a lot of time and effort. Having said that, I'll just take one phrase from our rituals, quote unquote, or the entire process. What do we call our wife? We call her Sahadharmacharini. Sahadharmacharini. So our culture talks about the spouse as someone who walks on the path of dharma along with me. Can there really be a higher notion? Because my highest aspiration and the path I take towards my highest aspiration, here is someone who is holding my hand and walking along with me on this journey to find the meaning of my existence. That is the depth and richness of these quote unquote rituals. So I'll take up Divyanshi. She had raised her hand as well to speak about this.
I think Ojasi and you covered pretty much a lot of what I wanted to say. But basically, if you find something patriarchal, then don't follow it. And if you are going to follow it, then like Ojasi mentioned, it's important to get to the spiritual essence. And it's also important that, you adapt it to your spiritual truth and the context. For instance, the Mangal Sutra, it's really the secret thread that really embeds the union, the very secret union on the path of dharma between the man and the woman, which is spiritually charged. So from there to how we are really looking at this as literally like a patriarchal thread that we wear in our, if that's the notion with which you're going to wear it, then that is probably what will percolate. So if you're really feeling this is patriarchal, then don't do it. But if you are really engaging with it, then it's very important that you get to that spiritual essence and also adapt it to the modern context. So it doesn't mean that, for whatever reasons, it's in a certain format that a Mangal Sutra comes today. You can have it in your own format. It's really the faith and the consciousness that you put in matter, in that secret thread, that makes the difference more than this or that. So really to get to the spiritual essence and to adapt it to the modern context, and that is something that requires, like Ojasi was saying, it requires work. It's not just like going ahead and being a rebel without a cause. This really requires a very, very deep exploration. So I think that's that. And if you're really feeling something is patriarchal, or that is the mindset with which it is coming to you, then have that guts in you to kind of stand up and say no. And that's what is needed.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Divyanshi. In fact, as we are coming to the close of the session, I want to reiterate to the participants who are still here that there are many other topics such as patriarchy that have not been touched upon today. In our panel discussion, in the discussion with the panelists, we talked about issues like Sabarimala and menstruation, which again is something that has come to the forefront of the national consciousness in the last 4 or 5 years. Similarly, there are other subjects such as Ghungat, Maang Mein Sindhur Bharna. Many of these have with the present generation of youngsters and young women, the interpretation is unclear. And as Ojasi, as Divyanshi just brought out, there is so much behind it that one has to be able to understand. Should we go to the temple or not go to the temple? There are so many layers of understanding behind that need to be discussed, and hopefully one day we will find the time to do so. So with that, we will come to the conclusion, and I will request Manoj bhai to read the poem that he wanted to read, and with that we can conclude this session. Manoj bhai, over to you.
जो इतनी सुंदर आप लोगों ने वार्ता की है, तो मुझे हिंदी की एक कविता याद आ गई। उसका शीर्षक है चिड़िया का घोंसला। चिड़िया का घोंसला उसको अंग्रेजी में कहते हैं नेस्ट, नीडम भी कहते हैं, संस्कृत में उसके लिए शब्द है नीडम। सो उसके अंदर एक चिड़िया का जो बच्चा है वो अंडे के अंदर बैठा हुआ है, और उसको हम सोच सकते हैं, चाहे वो उसको किसी सोल तो सोल होती है, स्त्री की हो पुरुष की हो, पर वो एक जर्नी है, और वो जर्नी एक एक्सपोजर की जर्नी है, एक चेतना की यात्रा है, और उसको इस कविता में कहा गया है। तो वो मैं उसके साथ अपनी बात को समाप्त करना चाहता हूँ। एक क्लैरिफिकेशन उसके पहले देना चाहूंगा। जैसे अभी श्रीनिवास भाई ने बोला कि पिछले 150 वर्षों में जब प्रकाशन शुरुआत हुई भारत में, तो अधिकांश जो प्रकाशन हुआ वो अंग्रेजी में हुआ। मैं थोड़ा सा इससे सहमत हूँ। मैं इस बात से सहमत हूँ कि हाँ, सरकारी खर्चे पर सरकारों ने जो छपाई करवाई उसमें हो सकता है अधिकांश हिस्सा अंग्रेजी में हो, लेकिन अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट बहुत सारा साहित्य जो है वो हिंदी में, तमिल में, दूसरी भाषाओं में छापा गया, और वो मेजॉरिटी ऑफ दैट लिटरेचर ऑफ नॉन गवर्नमेंट पब्लिकेशन वाज इन द नॉन इंग्लिश लैंग्वेजेस। सो आई विल कम बैक टू द पोएम द चिड़िया का घोंसला। सबसे पहले अंडे जैसा मेरे घर का था आकार, तब मैं यही समझती थी बस इतना सा ही है संसार। फिर मेरा घर बना घोंसला, सूखे तिनकों से तैयार, तब भी यही समझती थी, बस इतना सा ही है संसार। फिर मैं निकल गई शाखों पर, हरी भरी थी जो सुकुमार, तब भी यही समझती थी, बस इतना सा ही है संसार। लेकिन जब मैं आसमान में उड़ी दूर तक पंख पसार, तभी समझ में मेरी आया, बहुत बड़ा है ये संसार, बहुत बड़ा है ये संसार। Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Manoj bhai. Thank you. So once again, my gratitude to the participants and to the panelists for being with us for an extended session. We will now take your leave with your feedback inputs and with your suggestions. We will be back again on feminism alone. There could probably be a series of 4 or 5 talks depending on the area that we cover, and hopefully we will have them one day. Thank you so much on behalf of all of the entire AuroYouth team. Namaskar.
Thank you. Jai Sri Ma. Jai Sri Ma. Thanks to the mother and Sri Aurobindo. Thank you very much.